This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Vikings and Irish men and women? This is Stephen, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friend Jake here, and we're talking about the Land of the Living and the Dead, Gael Song, book number 3, recently out by Shauna Lawless. This is the end of the trilogy, and we got an advanced copy and are just getting to this review kind of right in time for a release date. So we're going to start with some no spoiler stuff if you haven't read yet, and then we'll get into spoilers and we'll make sure to tell people when that's happening because this is a good book and you don't want it to be accidentally spoiled by your favorite fantasy podcast here. So Jake, do you agree? Did you enjoy it as well? Because I,
Yeah,
I really liked this read.
I really liked it. I, I think you're right. You definitely don't want anything spoiled. There's a lot that happens in this book. A lot of plot lines are uh, concluded in satisfying ways, as well as some you thought would be concluded had some twist to it to to leave you wanting more, I'd say. And
Yeah,
so please avoid spoilers until you read it.
yeah.
I was my biggest surprise reading this is the first two books definitely had action to them. All of her books have had some action. I haven't read the second novella, but the first novella and the first two books. But I feel like they were mostly more dramatic in their pacing, more focused on the relationships. And I don't think
Mm,
you lose any of that in this book, but man, there is so much action going on in this book.
yeah.
Like in terms of individual fights, battles, like just I don't know. It was just so fast paced and it's so much yeah.
Yeah.
I felt
There's
like
a lot
yeah.
of like fates hanging in the balance.
Yeah.
And I think that especially like the last half of the book, I had trouble putting down because you just want to keep on reading to find out what happens here, what happens here, what happens here. And it's
Yeah.
done really well. The pacing throughout all of that is really well, and it kind of keeps you right on the edge of your seat all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, and like our main characters, I'll say the main characters as like Fola and Gormla, like they have both made it to a point at the end of book two where they feel like they can finally live their lives the way that they want to. And
Hmm.
it's really fascinating to see how that pans out and how that changes their not it doesn't change their motivations, but it changes their actions, things that they maybe wouldn't have done before, they're more willing to do now and vice versa. But
Yeah, yeah, I think that's well said. Through the first two books, they are trying to escape a lot of the tethers, the things that have bound them to certain situations. And now we get to see what they would do given all this freedom that they now have. And they're doing it. And yeah, it is interesting to see who they actually are as characters without the constraints of yeah, other characters or their own societies putting on them. Yeah, they're 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 both very separate, distinct characters, and they're both very well done. They have very unique voices. They are You're not cheering for them equally, I would say, but
yeah,
each of them are the heroes of their own stories really well, even if like Gormla especially is someone that I mean, hopefully you're not cheering for her, but she's really interesting to read, and you can see why she does the things that she does, even though, her actions are fairly terrible throughout
yeah.
most of the series.
It's really fascinating to see because her and Fola both have similar tethers, like you're saying, and it's fascinating to empathize with them both, for those things. Um, but also, so like I feel like there's a little bit of that, like you're happy when you see Gormla get more freedom. You're happy when you
Hmm.
see her take control of her destiny more, but then you're immediately disappointed with how she chooses to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
to
exactly.
act on that. So and like I don't know, there's a lot of uh it's just really well done to have both characters reflect that and to see like these like desires of equality from Gormla's view that you like I said like you sympathize and empathize with, and then also from
Mhm.
Fola's. But yeah, it's really good writing that way, and like you're excited to see some of that vengeance come out, and then you're like wait, that was too much, that was too much on the Gormla side.
Mhm.
But yeah, and then yeah, I
Yeah, they're
the
really good. They're really good foils of each other. They both, one of the themes of the series is, I would say, the inequality that women were facing in that time
mhm.
period, right? Like historically, and both of them have, desires to overcome this, and they're able to, by the time we get to this third book, act a lot more freely. And so in that regard, you're cheering for both of them. Like, yeah, let's get
Yeah.
this. We want them to both have this freedom and power and ability to do what they desire to. But like you said, Gormla immediately is like, "Ooh, maybe you
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that."
Because her whole thing is now I'm free to basically subjugate everybody else to my will.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Whereas Fola is more like now I'm free to live how I want to live,
Uh-huh.
and be my own person. And I think those are both realistic takeaways. Like that's both of those reactions to their constraints are very true to life. Like I think you see that play out in reality a lot.
Mhm. Throughout the first two books, I got major Cersei Lannister vibes from Gormla. We talked about this before. Did
Yeah.
you feel like that character comparison continued through this book as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did. I feel like I did more so in the first two because Cersei, for as much power politically as Cersei ever had, she was never truly that powerful, you know?
Mm,
Um, it was more she thought she was more powerful than she actually was. Whereas like we see in book two, like Gormla really ratchets up her power
yeah.
and starts be
Cersei
able to
never had
actually be
like the raw power of like, I have magic and can kill you.
yeah.
Cersei
Yeah, I
never
have
had that.
magic, and she never actually like within the realm of Song of Ice and Fire, like she never actually had true political power, and that like yeah, she sat in the seat of power, but like if Tywin were to come in and say, "Hey, I'm king now," everybody would have just been like, "Oh yeah, Tywin's king now." All the people around her would have just stopped obeying her.
Mhm.
Um, and so like the power she had was very um
Tenuous.
tenuous, yeah. Whereas with Gormless, she starts to actually like, I feel like she earns a lot more respect of Mal Morta by the time book three starts, and she's got the witch magic, and so, a lot of her plots are starting to like fill out, and so I think she reaches a point where she's more impactful than Cersei in that way. But again, but there's still plenty of moments in this book. I think one like everyone will think of Cersei towards like probably two-thirds into the book, without giving away any spoilers. I don't know if that
We'll have to
is
talk about
apparent to
that
you.
later
Yeah.
on. I'm not sure exactly
But
what you're
yeah.
referring to, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, it's really fascinating. I'm excited to see, and I don't know when we'll get it, but I'm excited to see how things pan out later, because that's one thing about this book that I think some readers might enjoy. I'm enjoying this aspect of it, and some might not, is that like I said, a lot of the plot lines conclude, but there's definitely like this is not the end of the series at all.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, there's a planned era two
yeah,
of the story. Not sure exactly what that entails. I think it's
yeah.
another trilogy from what Shauna has said. I'm not sure how much of a time jump there is, but it's kind of akin to other series. It's not like a Mistborn era two, where it's
No, I
like
don't.
a total new context and new characters. It's maybe more like I would say it's more like an Age of Madness.
Era
The
two. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Joe
Yeah. Like,
Abercrombie books where some characters are still around, but it's kind of like the next generation type thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I see it as well, especially with the way there's like a time gap device, the way the book ends. Um, and so I think that's what we'd expect there. Um, I'm fascinated politically how things will look in Era 2 as well. That's a great thing about reading all of these is just you're like, okay, I'm going to Wikipedia this person and find out like
Hmm.
what like the histories of this say. And I was talking to you about it while reading this. I did spoil a little bit,
Yeah,
not too much.
I can't believe you
Just
looked up Brian before finishing
I
the
didn't.
series.
It wasn't. I can't remember what I initially searched in Wikipedia, but then I was just like hopping links, like going to the next like blue person's name, and then I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I didn't realize this person was this important, and whole con. I don't think it actually spoiled much of the book, um, but yeah, that's really fun. It makes me want to, especially after reading. Shauna has a like an author's note at the end going over like her kind of historical research into
Mhm.
one of the big battles of the book and how it is a historical big battle in Ireland. And I'm like, man, she like put some of the books down that she recommended. Like, I got to read all these history books now. It seems so
Yeah.
fascinating. But
And it's cool that so we're talking about history that happened in the early 1000 ADs.
yeah,
I think the three books that we've read here cover about 15 years. I want to say the first book was starting more like 997 or so, so it's covering about 15 years total. I may be off on that, but it's about that time frame. And there's this book covers more time. There's a little bit of
yeah.
the timeline is pulled out a little more, which I thought was done pretty well.
Yeah, there was, I mean, I was reading it so fast and there were some times where I was like, oh wow, we're already this far. And then I looked like, oh yeah, like it's clearly noted in the chapter headings, the dates. And she does a really good job of keeping
Yeah.
that pace while allowing those time gaps and time jumps to happen to keep
Mhm.
the plot line engaging. Um,
I think the interesting thing about covering history from 1000 years ago is that it's been so long that the actual details of things are a little murky. And so
yeah,
you're relying, like, if you're
especially
trying to do research from that far, you're relying on accounts from different people and it's fragmented and whatnot. So there is no like real definitive, this is exactly how it happened. There's enough
mhm,
notes of like this is probably what happened, and but there's enough ambiguity that you really can come up with a story where you interject magic and whatnot, and
yeah.
you can get all the details that are agreed upon by historians, right? And still have a story that like totally makes sense.
Yeah, and again, in the author's note, she mentions how she wanted these books to be as historically accurate as possible, despite which may seem impossible given that there is like witches and druids and all
Mm,
that going on. Um, but that just I would love to like get like a full breakdown of her process there, like looking at the history and saying, okay, this event has to happen and these people need to be here at the end of that event. So how am I going to interweave like these characters' motivations and like who's going to be part of that event and who's not? Like that'd be especially like the way like the main like resolution to this plot. There's a lot going on and I'm fascinated to see like what decisions she was like mulling through before reaching the final verdict of who's going to be where and
hmm
who's going to affect what um, conclusions to the story there.
hmm
Um,
I wonder if she ever wanted to do something different with the characters, but felt like her hands were tied a little bit because
yeah,
the histories like definitely said like this thing happened to this character. It's like, I can't
Yeah.
really change that.
Yeah, I feel like it makes a more unique writing puzzle. I'm sure like writing in general, you find yourself in those positions. Like I feel like King Killer and Song of Ice and Fire are prime examples of authors who seemingly have written themselves into a corner where they're like, I have to make good on these promises, and I'm not sure how to do
Hmm.
that in one or two books. But it's an added complexity when you already have like these like this skeleton of things that you didn't come up with that are just there, and you're filling in these gaps and like trying to like connect these puzzle pieces together in interesting ways.
Yeah.
But
Maybe to some degree it makes it easier because
yeah,
you can't second guess your decisions. You're like, well,
true.
this has to, like, there's no way around this. This is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be such a like to quote to Perrin Ibera, it'd be like a blacksmith puzzle trying to
Mm.
un unpair it in your mind. But yeah. Uh
Okay, so
who
yeah, a
were
couple other like non-spoiler things. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, who are your standout characters without giving too many spoilers or any
Mm.
spoilers?
Well, one character is new to this story, so I don't want to do
Okay.
that one yet.
Okay.
I mean, I like Glormba, Glormba. I can never say the name right, but I
I don't know.
really like her perspective while despising the character. I thought
Hmm.
her parts are really always very interesting, and I enjoyed the Coleman parts as well. Those two.
Yeah. Really enjoyed Coleman. I know the character you're talking about that is new that you didn't want to although I think
Oh,
they
okay.
are I think they're mentioned in at the end of book two, if I'm thinking of the same one. If not, I found myself really liking Citric as the series went on. I feel like he's
Okay,
a
yeah.
character in book one. I feel like he just came across as oafish and brutish and like kind of representing a lot of this interesting dynamic with Gormla, how he is her son, but it has power over her in kind of representing this patriarchy and this
Hmm.
oppression, and how like even your son is now solely because of their gender is now,
Hmm.
able to boss you around and decide your fate. But he has really grown on me, and I loved his ending in this book as well. Um I think he's one of the better grayer characters.
Yeah. He became
Um,
much more dynamic as he
yeah,
got older.
yeah. And it was I feel like they do a good job of subtly letting you like realize kind of the struggles he has, like trying to figure out like do I really want to do this plan my mother has set up? Do I not? And like he's somebody he starts to who has been like pushed around a lot with all these different plots and has been more or less willing. In book two, he seemed pretty on board, and it's but I felt like you could see the cracks starting to appear there, and it was interesting to see his full character growth by the end of this one. Um, yeah.
Any others? Or, I mean, we don't need to go through all of them right now.
No, he's my main standout. I really like Fola and Gormla as well. Like I already mentioned that it was really fun to see
Hmm.
them like unchained in their lives
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah. So you mentioned that there's a couple of novellas. I think one thing people always wonder is like, do I need to read the novellas to pick up on the whole story? I don't think you do because both of the plots of the novellas, like the important things you need to know, are explained fairly succinctly. But I think they're both good stories and add to the reading experience. And so you're just going to appreciate things a little bit more if you do. So if you're like wondering, should I read them? Like, yeah, like definitely read them. But if you're someone who likes just like the full narrative, then you're not missing out on any details you need.
Yeah, having only read the first one, I really liked it. And the only reason I didn't read the second one is because I needed to read the arc in time to do this review, and so I just went straight from book 2 to book 3. But otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to go back and read that now. But
Yeah. Any other any other non-spoiler things we want to talk about? So we could maybe just discuss like themes of
okay,
the
yeah.
of this book. How well did they land? Like the title is The Land of the Living and the Dead. So obviously we're talking about life and death. And I think another big
Hmm.
theme is throughout the series is love, and there's a romance element to it. And I think a book is awesome when there's more than just the plot and the characters. There's also themes interwoven, and it's kind of like a commentary of sorts from the author. And I thought there were some good moments in the series.
Yeah. I always really like the theme of religion in these books, how you have the three
Mm-hmm.
like competing religious foundations of like the Irish, the Christians, and the Norse, and how like I just
Mm-hmm.
love seeing that play out. Um, I guess it's maybe more so culturally, but it's kind of interwoven with the religion, and I think that is explored in a cool way in this book as well. You know, like everybody's motivations are a little different based off of that cultural and religious background and how that is used, or how that affects decisions and motivations. But
Yeah, it's interesting how mixed those religions come even between all of the different cultures so
yeah.
quickly. Like there's some who are real devout in certain in Christianity or in the old gods, and there are some who are obviously just joining one or the other in order to
Hmm.
get power or appease whoever. And this is mixed up between all the different. It's not like only the English, I guess, would be the most natural Christians. Like it's not like they're the only ones.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the Vikings who are all in on believing in the new God,
Yeah.
the Christians. Uh,
Yeah.
that's really fascinating how that plays out.
Yeah. And how you can see like that, like you're saying, like the kind of the fractures within that society, whereas like some are really uh adamant and keeping to the old gods, and some are more adamant and like joining up with the new god of Christianity. And then there's a lot in between that are just like, I'm just trying to live my life, whatever
Mhm.
makes the most sense for me in this position, or whatever I guess my Lord says we're doing. I guess we're doing that now because like
Yeah.
I'm living in this society. But
Mhm.
yeah.
I'll just say my thought on the like the death and love and these themes. I just thought the ending was really nice. Really
Yeah.
kind of uh really beautiful tie up of a lot of things. I thought it was very similar to my feelings on the first novella, which I thought was
Mm,
just
yeah.
really touching when
Yeah.
we got into kind of these familial relationships over generations and the love that binds everyone together. And yeah, I thought it was really beautifully done by the time we got to the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. There's a really bittersweet moment regarding what you're talking about, and I agree. Uh it was very emotionally impactful in a fun way, in a cool way, I guess, not fun way. And it did a good job of some character development as well. Um, there's like an explanation at the end of how some of the other world, I think that's called the other world,
Hmm.
works, and um, it made you like kind of feel pity for a character while also being like, that's right. But so a little
Yeah,
bit of a little bit of both there at the same time. But
yeah. Okay, I think that wraps up our non-spoiler. Do you want to do like a rating or like a who would enjoy it type of thing? I feel like this is one that is an easier recommend, and
yeah,
I th it's kind of weird saying that because we read a lot of books and we like them all, but not everything that we enjoy is an easy recommend. This
Yeah.
one falls in that category because they're not as long, they're not quite as beefy, not quite as epic, but I feel like it's a wider appeal of readers with this type of story. And I feel like it really like falls into um a, a good niche of readers who like fantasy, like these types of stories. Honestly, I'm gonna recommend these to people that like the romantasy books that I kind of roll my eyes at because this has a good romance in it and it's got a good plot, and I think it's higher quality than we get for
Yeah.
some of those books. Not all, but some. And so I'm gonna tell these people, I'm gonna like my sister who likes I'm try these ones because I think maybe you get a little bit more here with these books.
I think the romance in this is leagues beyond. I only read the first Court of Thorns and Roses. The spice level isn't nearly as uh
It's Fade to Black.
yeah, it's Fade to Black. It's not a book you read for the spice, but in terms of the romance, I think it's a lot better. Like
Hmm.
the relationships feel so much more natural and like stronger for that reason in my mind. Um, but yeah, I think you're right. Like it's an easy recommend. I think just in general, like there's not a the biggest investment honestly would just be pronouncing the names. That's like that's the only barrier to entry I'd see for most American readers. And even
Yeah,
then, like if you're listening to it, doesn't matter. And if you're reading it, you don't have to pronounce it out loud anyway. So it's not a huge
yeah.
deal. But in general, they're just good books. And I think if you like fantasy, it has enough of that fantasy element there to be intriguing for those reasons. It's got a
Hmm.
good mix of that drama and then also some action as well, especially the third book. And then also I feel like you're saying like right now like the books that are like trending are those ones with more of a romance to the plot. I think in recent years things like oh dang, what's the name of that show? The one with the time travel in Ireland, uh, which
Oh,
is also based
yeah.
off a book series.
The
But that was
yeah,
pop.
the Diana Galbadon
Yeah, I'm
books.
thinking the Last Kingdom, which isn't that, but is also kind
The
of similar. Outlander.
Outlander.
Yeah,
Yes.
I feel like those things, even though like that was a few years ago, but like that kind of media is like kind of trendy right now, and I think this
Mm,
hits all those boxes while uh like maintaining its own identity and also being fascinating because of the true history aspect to it.
hmm.
So yeah, I've been honestly I've been telling Emily every day, like, you got to read these books. They're so good. And I think she's checked out the first one now on Libby. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so
Okay, let's get into spoilers. So
yeah.
if you haven't read, it's happening now. You've been warned. Okay, here we go. What part of the book do you want to talk about first?
Um, kind of want to talk about the end, but I guess fine. I just loved
We could talk about the end. Yeah.
the was Donicat or however you say his name? Was he the guy that was one of your favorite characters?
No, I was actually referring to Odysseus.
Oh,
Odysseus,
yeah. That
yeah.
was the Cersei moment I was talking about.
Okay.
When Gormla is like, "Oh, she's gonna kill me." I felt that felt very similar to the hag telling Cersei.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that part of the story.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't think that's in the show at all, is it?
I don't know, but just that the way the paranoia came off and just like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to do this thing, and like
Yeah.
it, and then twisting it to be, oh, it's a Odysseus' fault, where it's like
Yeah. It really
clearly
showed.
not.
Yeah. It really showed how almost like a sociopath Gormla was,
Yeah.
where like
Well,
nothing was her fault. She blames
yeah.
everyone for everything else. Yeah.
I think it was a coping mechanism because she really liked Odysseus, but then she was like I think consciously or subconsciously, her survival trumped her love for her, and then she had to justify it somehow to like, oh
Uh,
wait, you betrayed me, so that's why I can't believe you made me do this. Like,
right.
man, yeah. And I love
Yeah.
how that it's so sad, but I loved how that continued to affect Citrix's
Mhm.
development as a character. But
She was for Odysseus, for someone who was, I think, mostly included in order to provide that moment, right? Like that was
mhm.
something that was a really powerful moment. It really
She
was
was in book
important for
two,
Gormla's character. Was
wasn't
she? I
she?
couldn't. She probably was, but probably just as a young child, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
not
for
much.
someone who, I
Yeah,
assume she was mostly included in order to provide that, but she was done really well, where she didn't feel like cannon fodder. Like she felt like a character who
yeah.
was worth reading for more than just that moment. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I think that was a really good job of characterizing someone in a short amount of time in a way that you made the reader care about the
Mhm.
character, and then, and then using the character to provide this other bigger moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way the character was developed, it wasn't like, and obviously she's going to be a sacrifice at the end or anything like that. Like she had her own, like her, like she felt like her own person, and like I honestly thought I was like, oh, maybe she'll. I wonder how her being a shield maiden is going to affect the plot line later. That was like my thought the whole
Mm.
time up until you get
Yeah.
the the prophecy or whatever from.
Right. Because she had an interesting future. Like it didn't feel like her arc was just naturally over until it
Yeah,
was, and
yeah,
that's like what made it so tragic.
yeah. It definitely feels like her arc was cut short because of that, which was
Hmm.
um some good writing there. I really liked oh my gosh, I'm so bad at pronunciation. Danica. It sounds like Danica when I'm listening to it, but I don't know if
Yeah.
that's maybe I'll just say
Dawn Ch
Danica.
Dawn
Don
Chad
Chad.
for those of
Yeah,
us who are just reading. Yeah.
the Chad. Um I'm like fascinated. I want to read more because I'm like, how much of his personality wholesale was front, you know? At what point did he start to um politic a bit more
Mm.
and and get a little more conniving? And then how much was Citric involved with that? Like at what point? Because there's that moment where he's like on the wall and saying like, "Oh, I need to go right out and battle." And I can't remember at the time I didn't really think much of it. I can't remember how much Citric was holding him back or goading him on. I thought he was holding him back. Um, so maybe he wasn't in on it the whole time, but I think it also is like a good example of the people, like as much as Gormla hated being controlled, she did that to others. And then Citric and Danica are good examples of how
Yeah.
um that backfires on her.
Did
I
you
expected, oh god.
I was a little surprised by that twist, to be honest, and I would have to read through again to see how
Yeah,
well it's set up, because that was one thing that I was like, this is a little
too
out of,
fast.
yeah. Like I
Yeah.
didn't totally like see the clues to this could be happening. I thought the twist with him that was more likely was he was going to blow things up by betraying back to Brian. And those are kind of like that's what Gormla was more concerned about. So that's what, as
Hmm.
a reader, I was like, "Ooh, there's a possibility that he could mess things up by going back." I did not see him going completely the other direction, which, to be fair, kind of also characterizes Gormla, because she spends so little, she just uses him, right? She never really
Yeah.
cares, even though she's like, oh, I've got to like pull this kid in more, but I don't have time now. So, I'll act more loving when it matters
Yeah.
more after we get through this, right? In order to get him to do what I want. So, and since it's her perspective that we see him through the majority of time, like that makes sense. But at the same time, I don't know, maybe like a few more hints of,
Yeah, I could see
as
that.
he was like as he was riding when he was on the ship going towards the tunnel, like to take down
Getting
the
some like
yeah,
some bloodlust or something.
like he had a gleam in his eye and like a
Yeah.
maniacal smile, just something that like makes him seem like, okay, this kid's going a little bit to the other end.
I felt that more early on in his journey. Like they would talk about betraying Brian so much around him, and I was like, is he like he kind of became on board a little fast for that, and I just assumed he
Mm,
was like being kind of like manipulated into it. They did lay the seeds with the like not wanting to be sent to a church. But yeah, maybe it could probably have built a little more naturally if we had heard him like ask for letters from Brian or Turlock or any, you know what I mean? Because that was one of his main uh motivations at the end. It was like no one like I was just a pawn and no one actually
mhm,
cared that I was taken other than my political uh importance.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he at this point now seems like he is just a male version of Gormla, where Gormla was at the beginning of the
Yeah.
series, where she feels like no one really loved her. She's kind of on her own, out for
Yeah.
power, and
Yeah. The trauma
here, what?
cycle.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. There's a little bit missing there, and maybe for me that's coming out as like I want to know more. Like I want to read more about him to see like how and why that played out exactly the way it did. I expected Malmorda to betray her. That was my expectation the whole time. Like
Hmm.
as soon as he got a gift, and well, I thought not as soon as he got a gift, but as soon as they went to war against the Descendants and eliminated them as a threat. And maybe he was planning to once Brian was defeated, because that was the next like threat that Gormley could
Yeah,
help with. But I was
yeah.
just, and then at the end when they're like back in the boat, it's kind of like a reset for her story arc, which I thought was done uh, in a cool poetic way of like she's back and like, okay, I have no alliances, nothing, I have to rebuild. Um,
Hmm.
I thought he was gonna like kill her in the boat or something like that. I was just waiting for it, but
Especially where he got the warrior gift, which we understand is really dangerous. Like he
yeah.
probably could get to her and kill her.
Hmm.
And again, that's from her perspective. That's what she's much more worried about her brother betraying her than her son, because she assumes that her son will do whatever she says. And
Yeah.
and so as the reader, it is kind of the surprise when it happens the other way.
I was so surprised when Turlock died. That was like, I thought for sure he was gonna like wake up at some point,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um,
And
I think it did
I wonder if that's one where, like, would Shauna have
constrained by
preferred to,
history.
yeah, would she have preferred to keep him alive, except for the fact that like he obviously died
Yeah,
historically.
yeah, and like knowing, okay, he's going to die. How can I make his death impactful? Which I think
Hmm.
like I think she did a good job at like making
Yeah,
that confrontation
yeah.
in the water, rocking, and it's cool to see. I feel like maybe that's just my bias. I feel like the cupbearers have not been like fully talked about how powerful they are, you know? And then it was cool to see Danica come
Hmm.
in with a gift that was not really like given a second thought compared to like the witch's power and the warrior's power. And then he just like um is like super devastating with it. Um,
Yeah.
but
Did
did
you did you expect, well, you're talking about characters that you thought would or wouldn't die? Did you expect Murchad?
Merca
Did you,
or
yeah,
Chad, the other
Murka?
Chad.
Yeah. Did you expect him to die? I did. I thought
I did.
he
Yeah.
seemed like a tragic death waiting to happen.
I thought he was going to die in battle. Like I thought it was going to be
Mm.
just a loss in battle.
See, I didn't because
Uh,
I thought that he would die with Fodla there, and I didn't
hmm.
see how she would be in the battle. And so I thought he was going to die in a different way. I did not expect Fodla to also die.
Yeah, did not expect her to die. Oh, this is something I wanted to talk about in the spoiler section. So they introduced the prophecy of Fola and her children.
Hmm.
Um, Honestly, when it was first said, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, this is like a weird time to introduce like Fola as this chosen one figure. Like, you know, I feel like
You mean
chosen one.
when you first heard about it in the novella,
Oh man,
the
was that in the
prophecy?
novella? And I totally missed it. I
Yeah,
totally forgot.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
the Ronat perspective novella when she hears it from like the histories with the
I didn't, man, I
Tomas
didn't
had heard
remember that
it
at
from
all.
the previous prophetess. Yeah.
All right, so that's my bad. But in general, chosen one tropes I think are kind of hit or miss. Um, but I will say like even though I was disappointed when I reread that and had forgotten the other one, but I think it was done super well. Like I wasn't disappointed with the way it ended at all. And I think part of it was the fact that Fola dying, like it wasn't it recontextualized it in my mind to be like it's not really Fola who's that special, like it's her descendant, like her daughters who are.
Mhm.
Um, and it kind of and it made for an interesting surprise because it made me not expect her to die. Like I expected
Right.
her to continue
Right.
on. Um, so man, I feel so dumb that I didn't remember that.
Well,
That's
which novella did you read? Did you read that one or did you read the other one, which was more about Senna?
I read the first one, which is Ronat's perspective. I'm pretty sure if I
Okay.
remember right.
So yeah, you just forgot. That's okay.
Yeah, I just forgot. Um, uh, But but yeah, I think the way Fola died and that whole exposition you get with the other world transference, like we kind of hit on in the non-spoiler part, was done so well. Like you're saying, the reuniting with family with Aoife, and then realizing Mirka could come as well, and like love was that
Mhm.
connection, and then just like the sad but like vindication you like that feeling you felt when they went to Thomas or Tomas, and it wasn't that Tomas didn't have anyone on the other side that wanted him. It's that none of the people like he didn't want the one who wanted him, so it broke that chain. I think that
Yeah.
that like bittersweet ending went was really impactful. Um yeah. Just
Yeah.
the I don't know. That whole last battle scene, last fight was so intense with the baby. Is it Isolda? I don't remember
Yeah.
I don't remember how it was spelled exactly, but
I feel like Isolde is the right
Isolda.
pronunciation. Yeah.
But like slowly being taken down by the roots and like going into the underworld, which I didn't realize she was going to
Mhm.
the underworld. I just assumed it was like a tunnel, underground, just like um
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that confrontation
Kind
with
of
Tomas at the end.
spiritual transference through the
Yeah.
realms there. Yeah.
I thought we'd see some redemption from Tomas, honestly. Uh I think the
Like
ending made sense with
you thought he might strike back at the Fomorians at a
yeah,
at a big part or something. Yeah.
and maybe not in a big part like to where he like saves the day, but I thought he would just have remorse at the end, which
Mm.
he kind of did, but the remorse he had was they can't have you, which means no, like if they have you, I can't have you, which means no one can have you, so I'm just going to kill you, which
Uh,
was still done super well. I can't remember if we actually see this, but Coleman, he poisoned Coleman, right?
yeah.
As Coleman was like wounded and allegedly
Hmm.
dying. Do we see Coleman come back to life in this book or not? I don't
No,
remember seeing.
but they do like give him the antidote and then Fodla has to leave before he wakes
And they
up.
say they're like if we got it to him in time he'll wake up, but it was the
Yeah,
timing was close.
yeah.
Um,
But likely, if he does wake up, his warrior gift may be diminished, or he may have
right.
other,
Yeah.
complications. Yeah.
I'm assuming he lives. And
I'm
because of
assuming he
that,
lives as well, and will probably, you know, lead the how do you say to a did on yeah, the
I'm trying to
TDD.
remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember Tua Dedanen. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Trying to
that,
remember
yeah.
from the
He
audiobook.
he will he will lead them,
Yeah.
in their diminished numbers over the next few years.
Yeah, so I expect him to survive as well. And it made me think maybe
Probably him and
Tomas
Afrik, the
the freak.
healer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after that happened, I was like, oh, maybe Tomas poisoned him so he would die from the poison, not from his wounds, and then could be brought back to life and have his wounds healed. Like I thought maybe this was like the beginning of Tomas's remorse of like
Mm.
um I'm going to try to mitigate some of this damage.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, unfortunately for him, it didn't pan out that way. But
I also kind of had that thought. I wonder if maybe Tomas just did that because warriors are hard to kill,
yeah,
and
hard. Just finish him
Tomas
off.
is
Yeah.
kind of a weasel, and so
Yeah.
just poison the guy.
Yeah. Um Yeah, other standout characters, I really liked Olaf, and
Yeah, Olaf
Brodier.
returns
Yeah,
after. I don't think he was in the second book, and
she dreamed of him in the second
yeah,
book.
okay, okay, yeah, yeah. He was another character, like that relationship with Glormbla also was interesting for
Hmm.
her perspective, and it really like it was appropriate imagery of like the two really attractive evil people like scheming
Yeah.
and yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I thought it was a cool, and again, this is probably, well, I don't know. I don't know the history of this, but having him kill Sven or Svein,
yeah.
Svein, whatever. Um, I thought that was an interesting arc for him to show that like yeah he is dedicated to Gormla but he still has like his own
uh
desires there and it ruined her plans in a big way.
if I remember right, I was interested in this history, so I looked into it a little bit. I think they're just not sure
Not how
how
he
he
died at
died.
all.
Yeah,
Was Olaf in the running at all or was it just
I
unknown?
don't know. I didn't look up Olaf. From what I saw on Wikipedia, I could be totally wrong, but from what I saw on Wikipedia, he just suddenly died, and then a year later, his son Knut, something like that, ended up
Right.
taking over most of England.
Who they kind of mentioned in this one, right? Um,
Yeah,
how
they
he was trying
mention
to
him as like, yeah, he's the guy who's gonna be, he's like sailing over, and they assume that like this son is more powerful and will get it done.
yeah
And he does like become King of England for a long time.
yeah
I think his line continues to rule England up until uh, William the Conqueror comes over in
oh
like
really
1200, whatever. Yeah.
man if we had that big of a time jump them going to Normandy that'd be interesting to see how they're involved with William the Conqueror.
That'd be interesting. That would
I don't think
seem a
it's
little
that big of a
strange because
jump.
I also don't think that the Fomorians can live that long. Like 200 years.
I
200
don't know
years
how
seems,
it's all pretty that's all pretty vague in my mind how long anyone can
yeah.
live.
I get the vibe that they're more like 150 to 200
Okay. Is there some
lifetime.
compounding happening with the witch gift and
Oh,
the
okay.
Fomorian gift?
Double gift, live longer.
Yeah.
Could be. Could be.
Um some some thoughts for the future though. I was hoping Citric's son, who almost died, and then they did the baby swap. I was hoping him or Gormla's other son have some gift. Like I thought maybe Gormla's son might be born with a descendant gift. Like she tested him for fire, he had no fire gift, but it'd be cool to see
Oh,
if he
interesting.
actually has a descendant gift because she has that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I didn't think of that.
And then the other one, I
Hmm.
don't think she tested Citrix's son at all for a Fomorian gift. So
Right, right.
I don't know if I don't know how big those people are. And now that they have done the swap, I think it makes it a little less likely. Like maybe the purpose of that was just for uh Slania's motivation, but um
I don't know. I
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like those babies were focused on enough towards the end of the narrative when they didn't need to be, that
That's what it feels like to me,
there
but
could be
yeah.
something significant with them planned in the future.
Yeah.
It
And then what
was like
about
really poetic that both Fodla and Gormla were pregnant at the same time, which was
yeah,
cool. But I think more than that, I think the babies there, I think there could be some significance there, yeah.
that the pregnancy stuff was part of the time jump that I wasn't paying attention to enough, where I was like, oh wait, Fola's at term already. I thought she was like a month pregnant. Like I not paying
Yeah.
attention to the time jumps there. Um and what do you think about so when I first heard conquered the fire, I thought it meant she would have fire magic and be able to control the fire. But then as
Hmm.
the book went on, it was like, oh no, she's going to defeat the Fomorians. But then at the very end, you see fire dancing on her sword, right? It says something like that.
Yeah, is that for sure a vision of, I don't remember, was that a vision of Isolde, or was that just like a general thing that she saw? I don't remember.
Let me see. Oh, I don't
You,
have it anymore.
or was it just like a redheaded
Oh, dang, did it expire today?
shot?
Oh, that's yeah, I don't have it on oh, there it is. I don't know why it was off my home screen. Um,
Would have been like right at the end of the book.
yeah, it's the last page. Once I'd seen my sister and all the people of Ireland burning. Um, only uh still visions of the land burning. Only now there was one vision that gave me hope, one vision with the girl. She had long red hair, dark eyes, fought with two blades in her hands. The wind swirled over her, the soil moved at her touch, the rain burst from the sky at her command, and upon her flame fire danced.
So she is the
So
Avatar.
that yes, she's the Avatar. In my mind, again, I read that as she's has that fire magic, which I don't know if it's going to be Fomorian fire magic or a very rare. Although she is, we learned that the Fomorians had interbred with the descendants, like Brace, or however you say him. He was the second king of the
Hmm.
Tuatha, and he was half and half. So maybe there's Fomorian blood in there, and so she'll be a trueborn half and half. Or it could be she's being attacked by Fomorians and fire's dancing on her blades for that reason. I don't know.
Hmm.
But
I just got the vibe that she was like, I mean, she had control over the, seems like she has more like elemental control. I'm not sure what gift is that.
she's a witch, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because like Ronat could do like the storms and the wind and things
Right,
like
right,
that.
right.
Um,
The Ronat was also the prophetess, I guess. Oh, I think that's
I think,
explained where like they just seem very similar, the two gifts.
yeah, I
Or like
assumed it
one
was,
evolves into the other one.
yeah, I assumed like
Yeah.
a prophetess was a like a
Yeah.
specialized version of a witch's
Yeah,
gift.
I think you're right
Um,
there. Yeah, she seems like, yeah, so if she's a witch, which would explain all the other elements, but obviously like fire is not going to be
we
something
haven't seen
that
fire at all.
the
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, maybe she's just fighting against fire. I don't know. That would be interesting.
yeah.
It just seems like at odds to me that she would have fire magic, that we'd have like a twin born,
Well, that was
Mistborn
my
era
thought.
too. but
My thought
maybe.
up until she started summoning the rain when Gobnat attacked her, like as soon as we
Uh,
heard power over fire, I was like, oh, she's going to be Fomorian somehow. And so I was trying to figure out how uh Mirka might be related, like how Gormla or Malmorda or another Fomorian might have been part of Brian's line
mm,
and then pass, or I guess anyways, yeah, either their line and pass it down to Mirka to the point where it happened. But that didn't, I didn't see any evidence of that I like from my recollection. So
maybe it goes even further down, and Solda has a child with one
Donica.
of not Donica, one of the two, either what if,
Oh,
with
Citrix.
Glormla's
Yeah,
son, who, as you suggested, or Citrix's son, who is indeed a Fomorian, since it was
maybe.
hinted at, like between the two that they could have, some power together. And then so this is Spodla's granddaughter that she sees.
Maybe. Maybe. The fact that she has the swords makes me think it's Isolde though, because I assume Brocken's going to be training her to be
Mm,
a warrior or to
yeah,
fight, not
to
have the
fight,
warrior
to
gift, but
fight for sure. Yeah,
um,
yeah. Brocken will definitely be in the next
yeah,
era. He'll be an
they'll
important figure.
they'll probably be like the Coleman of that era.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
I would assume a big part of or at least like a side story in the next era, is him like finding uh, a lasting love, or at least like a love that plays out happier than it did in this book.
you think so? I kind of envision his future as just waiting to die to be with the Turlock.
Mm. I mean, it could be, but he also like loved him for a year or two as a young man. I don't know. Like, is that something that you like wait your whole life to get back to? Maybe.
I don't know.
I, I, yeah. I mean, I guess that is certainly a possibility. I hope he can find something in his mortal life as well, though.
Yeah, yeah. I think the more tragic telling would be the waiting for the love you can't have, but the
Yeah.
more uh like the I don't know, it would be more fun to read. But
Well, I mean, there's certainly no shying away from tragedy, as we saw.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um
One other
yeah,
thing that was a part of the series but didn't really play out too much were these like weapons slash artifacts
yeah,
of
the
the
treasures.
Tuatha De Danann. And the only one that really had much of a significance, if I'm remembering right, is the cauldron, which uh
Yeah.
grew the new hawthorn tree, right?
Yeah.
And the
But
ones that Coleman took, the spear and the sword, are those the ones he took? Never
yeah,
really, did much, even though they were,
they were kept
uh,
hidden the whole time,
yeah,
right?
but they were discussed. Like I kind of
Do we
thought they would
know
be
what
significant in some way.
do we know what they do? I just assumed they were really powerful weapons in that sense,
Yeah.
but the cauldron I assumed would brew amazing potions, but it was used for a completely different purpose. So I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think we do know what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be fun to see those used in the next era.
Hmm.
Um,
Just in Bracken finds those, or I
yeah.
mean, Coleman still knows where they are, so
Weren't they on the
he would
island?
on Rathlin Island.
Rathlin. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He hid them there. Yeah.
Which is where Brocken's going, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
and
where Isolde's
that's
going.
where Isolde was sent by
Yeah.
Ronette. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you'll have him there. I hope we see more exiled descendants, like maybe an effort to gather in the fold, like find
Yeah,
them and
yeah, yeah.
um maybe not like obviously hopefully not force them back to the fortress, but I'm imagining like Aes Sedai going out to find wilders and like
Mm,
the that kind of thing.
yeah, the
That
like
could
the kin. A
Yeah, like the
little
camp. Yeah.
enclave. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be good.
Um,
One
yeah.
one thing that I was a little disappointed on was I was hoping there'd be a big Fodla Glormla moment at the end.
Oh,
It didn't need to be
yeah.
huge, but just some like face to face, you know,
Yeah.
conversation or acknowledgement between the two because they were these are two main characters, they're big foils of each other. If there was some real impactful confrontation of some kind.
Yeah,
I
it's
felt kind of sad that we didn't have that.
I get that. I feel like you have to choose between her to have a big confrontation with Gormla or Tomas at the end, the way it
Yeah,
was funneled. And I think her with
yeah.
Tomas is much more impactful. But yeah, I do wish we would have gotten a Gormla Fola interact because like they've been like ships passing in the night for so much of the series.
Mm,
You know, the end of the first book is where you're like, oh shoot, they're gonna be like living together. And then the second book, she's like, I have to find the spy. And at the end of the second book, she realizes it was Fola, but at that point, Fola had left to Rothland. And then yeah, that would have been that would have been good to see. Um, I also agree with your point. I'm looking at the notes here. The battles were a little over explained ahead of time. Like there's little it would have been nicer to I feel like to see them play out and not know what's going to happen. Like I think a good example
yeah.
of that was with the uh Secnil, whatever his name is.
Oh, not knowing if he was gonna join or
Like
not.
he's like not participating, which is causing so
Yeah.
many people to die, but then he does finally join in at the last moment. Um but
Schnall.
yeah.
Yeah, however you say
Yeah.
that king's
Yeah, I don't know
name.
how to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Um
like the more you explain the battle plans, the less you're able to have in terms of like exciting subversion or
yeah.
yeah,
Just the tension of the battle is I mean
yeah.
there's definitely a balance to it because like you have like the heist trope where you explain the plot like you explain the plan ahead of time and then the tension is seeing how it all falls apart and like
Yeah.
how you
Uh-huh.
adapt to it. Um, and then also the other like you don't want it to not be explained at all, and then it's like I think Red Rising suffers from this issue. No plotting, no planning is explained ahead of time, and then anytime there's like something that seems like oh no, how they're going to get out of it, it's like, but I had thought of this a year ago. I had talked with this person, and we planned for this. You know, like I feel like
Uh-huh.
that happens so much, and especially the first three Red Rising, where it's like, oh, okay, there's no way I, as a reader, would ever like expect you to be able to come out of this, but off screen, you've already like planned for this contingency.
I could see that
So
frustration, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
In this final battle, the tension became will they be able to pull off what they have explained to us is the plan or not?
yeah,
Which
yeah,
was fine. I didn't think it suffered tremendously from that. I guess I'm just a little more used to the explain part of it, but like leave a key
yeah,
thing unexplained until, the big
yeah,
moment when, when Gandalf arrives after the 7 days,
yeah.
or, or
3
third
days,
days, 3 days. Yeah,
the
three
third day
days.
on the look to
Yeah.
the yeah.
Yeah.
I I felt that more, I think, with Gormla's scheming. Uh like some of the scheming was like maybe over explained. I don't know.
I thought her scheming was interesting because
Yeah.
she did explain a lot of it, but she also didn't have nearly as much planned out
Yeah.
as you as like for the amount of confidence that she had that it would work, she didn't have it nearly as
Yeah.
much planned out as you might think, which was interesting because
Yeah.
things went wrong quite a bit and like it ultimately like worked out pretty well and up until it didn't.
Up until it was really Olaf killing Sven, right? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was the main issue. Uh which was, I mean, it was huge. Like that was their whole plan centered on that. So that was a big oversight on her part to not think back to Olaf and Sven's like
Hmm.
history to trust him to do that, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, I really, yeah, I think that tension was done well where you're not sure if Citric's going to have enough men, and then you're not sure if like Mirka's plans are going to play out. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I felt like them having 1,000 more men and being in the fortress though, like I was like, I don't know how they, I don't know how they would lose. You know, like they're in such a better position, but
I think I want to say Brian's side had a little bit more. They had the numbers, but but Citric side had Dublin. And
I thought Citric had 10,000 by the end, and Brian had like 9,000.
well, it was like Brian had the numbers, but they knew that
Hmm.
more and more Vikings were arriving. So they felt
Gotcha.
like they
Yeah.
had to pull the trigger while they still
Oh,
had the
Brian.
numbers.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and to lure him
Yeah.
out. If
Yeah.
they waited any longer, then then they would have no options.
Yeah.
That all I think played out pretty well.
Yeah.
That logically made sense and had some good tension to it. But throughout the whole thing,
Yeah.
it's just fun to think back to a time where so much of the information out there is murky. There is no Google Maps, there is no
Yeah.
satellite imagery. You're relying on spies who may or may not get the message to you in time, and none
And
of the
like,
information
no,
is really certain. So you're just going for it. You're like, I think this is gonna work, so I'm gonna go for it. And
and just
that was really I thought that was conveyed very well, that sense of
and like
things.
the lack of communication of like, I've asked these people to come here. They're not here yet. I don't know if that means they're not coming or if they will be here in a day, you know, like that kind of
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
lack of information. But yeah.
Cool. Well,
Oh, last
yeah,
thing. Don't trust
last
the
thing.
water. Don't trust water. What was that? I never understood that.
I think it's referring to the tunnel plant that collapsed, right? Where most of the Tuatha died. Like,
The Simmons.
they went through the water. They thought that they could trust
Was
that
it
as
though?
an escape.
She says
Well,
that
because
afterwards though.
Rona, no, she says that before, and she's like,
She says it before for sure, but she also says it afterwards.
oh, but also afterwards.
She said you can't listen to the water. You can't trust the water.
She does say it afterwards. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe it's still to
Hopefully that's
come.
explained. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. Because that is repeated a lot.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard to know how much of is just she's crazy and how much is actual like things she's seeing. But
Hmm. I thought it
yeah,
was the tunnel thing because when she is talking to Fodla at the tree while this is all like going down, and she wants Fodla to go into the tree and escape, she's like, I've seen all of this, she's the Doctor
she
Strange.
says it. Yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
this. It's not, there's no possible way that it's gonna work out. They're all going to die. And I got the vibe that like, okay, this is the water thing that she was worried about, and now this is how it's gonna go down. But yeah, she does continue to say it. So,
She says it more in the way of like I can listen to the wind, but I can't listen to the water.
uh-huh.
Like less so like
Hmm.
don't trust the water plan, but don't trust like what the water has to say.
Maybe don't don't shut, yeah.
Yeah. Don Chad,
Yeah.
like Don
Gorm
Quixote, but Don Chad.
Gormla's son is now kind of the water, almost like he's
Maybe.
got the,
Yeah.
yeah, don't trust that guy for sure.
Maybe that was it. Yeah. I don't know.
Hmm. Let us know, Shauna, if
Yeah.
you listen. Did we
Yeah.
miss this?
Yeah. We need a
All right.
Shauna reaction of all the things we missed.
Yeah. Okay, well, we both really enjoyed the series, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to more books, looking forward to Era 2. I know there's like a whole plan for this and some more novellas, and I think Actually, I think the next thing is there's going to be a third novella. I'm not sure what that's going to consist of. And then all three novellas are going to be published and printed together. And then from there, I think we're on to era two.
Mhm.
So if you like Gael Song, there's going to be more. And we're both interested to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. If you like Phantology, you can join our Discord. Links to join will be below in the episode description. For books like this, we have read-along channels where you can chat with people that are also reading. And if you're hopping onto our video now, there's certainly still time to do this. Although if you are listening now, you probably heard all the spoilers. So I don't know if you really want to, if you're still interested in that. But in the future, definitely, hop on and you can chat with some fellow fantasy nerds. So thanks for listening. See everyone later.
See ya.